Oh, hello. My name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Whoa. Okay, so back at the end of the first quarter of the year, I did something that I think I called the best and worst 2009 books so far, and you guys really liked that, and that was helpful feedback for me because one of the things that I want to make sure I'm being conscious of is as I'm getting arcs and reading arcs, I want to make sure that I'm communicating back to you like how that's going because yes, I get that so that I can enjoy books early, but the reason I get them as a reviewer is because I want to give you guys feedback on like what I think is really good or just like my impressions and basically just what is worth your time of all of the new releases that are coming out because Lord knows every year hundreds of new books come out. It can be kind of overwhelming, and I think what that video did and hopefully what this video will also do is kind of let you know sort of where I think things are in terms of their quality on their own, but also relative to the other things that are coming out because there's a lot of noise and it can be hard to figure out, you know, amongst competing priorities, what is worth your time. So I did that in Q1. I'm going to do this for Q2 where I will do a full ranking of, I think I have 28 arcs that I have read so far this year for Q1 and Q2. And I will keep doing this throughout the year at the end of each quarter to kind of let you know where things are. And I'm thinking that at the end of the year, I can do like my master ranking of like, these are the books that I read that came out in 2019. And here's kind of where I think they fell because I think it seems like you guys are finding this helpful. So with all that being said, I am going to include the books that I mentioned in my first video and my Q1 in this ranking. I'm not going to give you any information on them other than their current rank and what rating I would currently give them because some of them I've adjusted a little bit as they've sat with me longer. And I'll give you sort of like a quick mini review for the ones that we haven't talked about yet. So overall, I think we're still doing really well on my arc reading. So it looks like for my Q2 arcs, so arcs that came out in April, May, or June, my average rating was 3.43. If you add in the book that I also read that came out in Q2, so I didn't get it as an arc. I requested it and did not get it. That average would go up to 3.47. For my Q1 and Q2 arcs only, so like for all of the arcs that I have received, the average is 3.45. And then for all of the books that I got as an arc or that I've read but didn't get as an arc, if that makes sense, I requested it, didn't get it, but read it anyway, the total average is 3.44. So all of those are sitting around 3.45. In my book, anything over a 3-star, you're doing pretty good. I would recommend, think of that as sort of like a B. These are kind of close to a 3.5, which I would think of as sort of like roughly a B plus-ish. So for that to be the average, doing pretty darn good. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into ranking all 28 of the arcs that I have read so far for 2019. So these are all the arcs from January to June. And actually, sorry, just did a recount and 29, not 28. So with that being said, my lowest rated one that I've read so far came out in June, and that is Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. I gave this 2 stars. This was not terrible. This just was not as good as I think Tessa Bailey is capable of. I didn't find her characters sufficiently fleshed out for me to really engage with the story. And for me, one of the main things I'm looking for in a contemporary romance is to really cheer for the couple involved. And I was actually kind of like actively rooting against particularly the dude getting what he wanted, namely the heroine. Like I thought she was too good for him basically. So yeah, there was just like something in the authorial voice as channeled through the characters that really didn't work for me. Read the description. This is about essentially like best friend and the best friend's sister getting together. And so that's a trope I know a lot of people love, myself included. So read the description. I don't think this is terrible. I just think that Tessa Bailey can do better. So it was not one of my favorites. Next, we have Tightrope at 2.5. This is by Amanda Quick. And this was a mystery, like a romantic mystery set in the 20s. So like the cover is gorgeous, obviously. It has sort of that like Art Nouveau vibe, the 20s vibe. I'm into that. Like I really like the setting of this in terms of the time period and also like the little town that they're in. And I also really liked our main female character quite a bit. The problem with this is that it's the third in a series and it's sold as being able to be read as a standalone, and I don't think it really can be. But even aside from that, the way that this gets started is just really abrupt for how a mystery plot is meant to be paced, in my opinion, and I just never really got my footing after that. I'm intrigued by this. I have the first two as ebooks, and I think I will go back and read those at some point. Amanda Quick is like a legend in genre fiction, so like I definitely want to try more. This just wasn't my favorite. Then we have Ragged Alice. This came out in April, and this is a situation where I would definitely, again, read more from this author because I was intrigued by the things that were happening in this. It's basically a paranormal mystery set in rural Wales, and the investigator is from this little community, and she's kind of come back and is investigating some local murdering stuff that's happening, and like spooky stuff also starts happening. This is just a situation where it was not long enough to really flesh out all the conflicts that the author set up, so it felt kind of unsatisfying. I think this would have been better served either being a novella or having like a full like 300 or 400 pages to like flesh everything out. Like I said, I would try more from this author because it was well written and I was intrigued by a lot of the things in it. It just wasn't executed as well as I think it needed to be. So 2.5 stars for this. Then I have Elephant in the Room, which got 3 stars. That was in the last video, so I won't say more about it. Then we have Getting Hot with the Scot by Melanie Johnson, which I also gave 3 stars to. This is perfectly competent contemporary romance. I think that there was just nothing about this that made it stand out to me, and it ended up not being tropes that I love so much because I don't tend to really like the hook up to love trope. I don't know. The authors rarely can really sell me on that being plausible. This does have like an element of like travel if you're interested in, you know, some hot Scots, basically getting hot with a Scot and an American heroine. So if that's your thing, like there's a lot of trope bait in this. I could see why people would like it better than me. For me, it was just sort of like, this was fine, middle of the road. And then we have Wicked Saints, which I originally gave a 3.5 to, but I've kind of dinged back down to a 3 star the more I sat with it. I think thematically there's some really interesting stuff happening in this book in terms of a YA fantasy that is taking seriously ideas and questions about religion and how religion incorporates into our sense of self and our sense of individual and corporate identity. So I really liked that. I just think that this was pretty boring in a lot of, like the actual plot I thought was just not satisfying. It's a first book, so I think it's building to something, but I just didn't think there was enough that was unique about it. I say that also as someone who has not read the Grisha books, but I know that a lot of people who have read the Grisha series by Leigh Bardugo feel very strongly that there's a lot of heavily borrowed elements from that series. I think that the author started off as writing fan fiction in that series, so like, I don't know. I think this one had a lot of hype leading up to it, and I think as it came out, people started reading it and started being like, I'm not sure about this. And I don't have that kind of expectation mismatch. I just think this seemed like kind of basic YA fantasy to me, so it was fine, but nothing amazing. So I guess I would just say that it was fine. Like nothing wrong with this, but nothing great about it either. Similarly, the next one up, I would say would be A Curse So Dark and Lonely. I reviewed that one in the first one. Not going to say more about it here. Same for The Fifth Doctrine. Also gave that 3 stars by Karen Robards. That would be next. And then we get to a controversial pick, which is Middle Game by Shauna McGuire. Now, I will say that I had somewhat bad expectations going into this because for whatever reason, I thought this was middle grade, and this is like absolutely not that. It does have a coming of age element to it, so it has like a part of it that is with kids, but it is 100% an adult fantasy book, pretty brutal in some places. So I think that may have been part of why this wasn't my very favorite. I also just think for me, this was fine, but that there were some real flaws with the writing, and for a book of this length, I mean like 500 to 600-ish pages, I just think it needed to be stronger. And I also personally feel that The Library at Mount Char is a much better version of this type of book. Like, pretty much just across the board, I think The Library at Mount Char is better. So I would give this a 3-star. I know that a lot of people are loving this. This is one that I would just say was like fine, but not great. I would be very interested to hear from other people who have read The Library at Mount Char if they had a similar reaction that I did. I'm wondering if maybe because I do think that's just a better book, that somewhat diminished my experience of this one. Then I have Star-Crossed by Mindy Dark, I believe is the author, which I also gave 3 stars to. I think we're moving now into the territory of ones that like were good. Like I wouldn't steer you away from this. I wouldn't, you know, anything that gets a 3-star I think is fine. I think we're moving into the arena of like 3 stars that just didn't do enough to distinguish themselves to get more, but they were like really solid versions of what they are. So Star-Crossed, I would probably, it's being sold as a romance and I don't think it quite is that. I think it's more in the women's fiction-y kind of realm, or like maybe chick lit-ish. But I would say the only thing about this that does, I think, distinguish it a little bit is that I think it is genuinely really well written. So if you're looking for really well written kind of chick lit, this is probably something I would recommend to someone looking for that. Chick lit as opposed to romance tends to not be my favorite, so I wonder if this is somewhat just like a genre mismatch for this personal reader. But the premise is super cool, basically that like it's around astrology and these 2 people who were born on the same day, and the girl knows that the guy really believes in astrology, so she starts writing his horoscopes to try to get him to fall in love with her. So like that's really cool. We get a lot of different POVs. It's a perfectly good book. It just was one that didn't like I didn't fully love, and I think it's like solid, but just like not amazing. So that's why I gave it 3 stars, but I would definitely recommend this one if you think it sounds good. Very similarly, I would say The Last House Guest by Megan Miranda is an example of sort of like a domestic-y thriller that is perfectly competent, but I would say has pretty much nothing unique about it. So it's in that sense not very memorable. Did you guys just hear that motorcycle? So there's just nothing that really distinguishes this from any number of other domestic thrillers. And the reason I wanted to read this was because it's set in a small, I think it was in Maine, like a small town. And I really like that as a setting. And I've been trying to like domestic thrillers more just because there's so many of them every year that I feel like if I liked them more, I would have more to read. But I just think the setting is really nice. And I think that the fact that it didn't have a lot of really surprising pieces of the plot, it's kind of your standard like, somebody died a year ago. Did they really die? I don't know. Let's go back and figure it out. So it has like a dual timeline, which you guys know I'm always a little iffy on. And then the writing is really nice, but it's the style where it's like short, terse, declarative sentences. And I just don't like that narrative style that much. So I think this was mostly just like, this is solid. If you read the description, if this is the kind of book you like, I don't think you'll be disappointed by this, but I just don't think it does anything like super interesting. So like, I would recommend this as like kind of a fill-in read, but maybe not something that's like super unique. Next, I would put The Gilded Wolves, which I reviewed last time. I did bump this down from a 3.5 to a 3-star. The longer it sat with me, the more I was like, I think this is really more like a 3-star. So that one is next. Then I have Thick by Tressie McMillian Cottam, which was another one from last time. So it is now the 13th one we've talked about. It was also 3 stars. And then we leave the 3-star realm. So Thick is my highest 3-star on this list, and we get to the 3.5. So first we have The Cowboy and His Baby by Jessica Clare. This I think is just like a really great example of contemporary romance. I love Jessica Clare's kind of humorous narrative voice. It's something that really works for me. I like that her heroines tend to be pretty plucky. And I think the reason I didn't love this more was that it's 2 tropes that are a hard sell for me. One is a cowboy trope. Like I don't tend to love Westerns in romance basically. And then there's also, it's called The Cowboy and His Baby. There's like a accidental pregnancy trope, which again is just not my personal favorite. I think Jessica Clare sold me as much as I could be sold on those 2 tropes. She's one of my favorite authors. I would definitely recommend this to you, just like if it sounds good. She will deliver. She always does. Then we have Cliff's Edge by Meg Tilly, and I really like the 2 books that I've read from Meg Tilly. Their romantic suspense is unlike anything I've read before because they are this weird mashup between a like zany small town rom-com and like a romantic suspense where somebody's like stalking the heroine and trying to kill her. So it's a really weird tone mashup, but for some reason it just works for me. And this is one that has a trope in particular I really like, which is the hero and the heroine are like, it's forced proximity basically. They're his best friend and her sister are married, and they both think that they're house sitting for them, and so they both end up staying in a house together. They fall in love, there's suspense, good times. Like, this delivered for me. I really like this. I don't think that the writing quality is that great, to be totally honest with you, but I don't care because I just have fun when I'm reading these. So yeah, I really like this little series. So that's why I put it as a 3.5, as high as I did. Then we have BINTI, the bind up of all of the novellas plus a bonus story that I read back in February. I gave that 3.5 stars, so I had that one as next. Then I had Spectacle by Jodie, Lynn, Zdrok, which was a YA historical speculative fiction book that I also gave 3.5 stars to back in February. And then Stone Cold Heart by Laura Griffiths was another one I gave 3.5 stars to back in March, which was a kind of romantic suspense procedural that I really enjoyed. I thought that one was really fun. And those are all my 3.5 stars. So then moving into the 4-star, the first is The Tesla Legacy, which is a contemporary kind of like sci-fi-ish, speculative fiction-ish YA mystery that has like a secret society element to it. That was good. 4 stars, I gave that one. I think back in March was when I read that. And then we have Commander-in-Chief by Reilly, which was something I reviewed I think in April, and I really enjoyed this. This was a biography of Trump as told through his golf game, like so specifically examining his history with golf, and it is called Commander-in-Chief because it is basically looking through the documented evidence that he is like a known and pervasive cheater in his golf game. And I think I said this back when I reviewed this in my April wrap up, but I think what was so smart about this project was it's taking something that's at least on the surface apolitical and examining Trump's character through it. And I just think that's a smart project. The tone is very chatty. I think I would definitely recommend this if you have a dad or whoever who you need to get a gift for. If they're not gonna freak out about the political implications of this, this is definitely one I would recommend because it's really readable. Somebody commented that this was slanderous, and I just want to address that, like, I'm very confident that the lawyers at this publisher would not allow anything to be printed that could not be verified in fact. I think Reilly is very clear when he's talking about like hearsay versus like documentary evidence. Reilly also knows Trump, like he has played golf with him and has witnessed this behavior himself. So I do just want to be really clear that I think characterizing this book as slanderous, or actually it would be libel because it's written, is not accurate. Can do with that what you will, but you would need to read the book to be able to even try to make that kind of assertion. So anyway, just a little caveat there because I did get a comment about that, so just wanted to address it. Next was Biased by I think Jennifer Eberhardt. I read this back in March. 4 stars, really enjoyed it. So I put that one above Commander-in-Chief. And then the next one is JALALLEDIN by Raffi. This is a classic, so it wasn't really published in 2019. I think it was published in like 1878, but this translation from the Armenian original just came out. This was kindly sent to me from the publisher, and I was really glad to get a chance to read this because it was just like something totally unlike anything else I've read. Just really enjoyed this. I think this may have actually come out in March, but I read it in April, so I wanted to go ahead and mention it, but I gave this 4 stars. It has sort of like a parable-ish quality to it that I really enjoyed, and I was really psyched to get to read a classic from kind of a part of the world that I'd never read something from before. So 4 stars, really enjoyed this. And then after that one, my next 4-star pick I would put above it would be The Wolf and the Whale by Jordanna Max Brodsky. This was epic fantasy with an Inuit Viking lore system and a strong romantic element to it. Really like that one. That would be, I think I put that as number 2 in my first list. So everything from here, guys, are things that I really love and would really recommend. Then we have Say You're Sorry by Karen Rose. This was actually the top of the list, I believe, for my Q1 arcs. I liked it so much I went out and got a physical copy of it. Yeah, this is just like super solid romantic suspense, and that's why it topped that previous list, and it is still pretty close to the top of this list. So yeah, so from here on out, everything else are Q2 reads. So these are all new ones that I haven't ranked yet. So next I would put Holy Sister by Mark Lawrence. Again, this is one I pre-ordered, so I have a nice copy of it here. I really think that this is a very strong ending to what is an absolutely excellent trilogy of kind of grim, dark-ish, post-apocalyptic-ish fantasy. So good. This is a series about boarding school for warrior assassin nuns. It is just great. I have an entire like gushing review of the series as a whole that I did, so I won't say I guess much more about this other than that I really think that this was a pretty darn strong ending. Not perfect, but which is why it's like a 4-star instead of a 4.5 or 5. But I think all things considered, it's very hard to end series in a way that's satisfying, and I definitely think this one does. Very sad that this is over, but excited to read more from him in the future. I think this was number like 25 of the ones we've talked about so far, so pretty high up there. Then we have The Bride Test by Helen Hoang. You can tell that these are ones I really love because you're seeing more and more of them that I went ahead and bought in physical form. Because I enjoyed them so much. This was a Book of the Month Club pick, so I went ahead and picked it up. I don't think I personally like this one as much as the Kiss Quotient. I gave both of them 4 stars though, and I think that this one is probably better written. This is just really good contemporary romance between a woman who is biracial but has been raised in Vietnam, so she is Vietnamese and Caucasian, and the hero is a Vietnamese American who is autistic, or at least on the spectrum, and his mother goes to Vietnam to essentially select a bride for him and try to have like an arranged marriage going. She comes back to the US for like a trial period to see if they're gonna get married. There's some power dynamics in here that made me just like, that were very angst-inducing for me, but I think the author was really aware of that and addressed it in the text. Maybe not always to my satisfaction, but her awareness of it made it not a problem for me. Also, the characters in this are so good. Esme in particular, the heroine, is just so great. She's the heroine we deserve. The hero is really sweet as well. His name is Kai, and I really love seeing them get together. Also, this sets up a sequel for Kai's cousin Quan, and like that's the next book. Cannot wait for that because it's going to be everything. Yeah, really enjoyed this. 4 stars, would recommend. So those were all of my 4 stars. So I guess The Bride Test was my highest 4-star. Then we come to book 27, The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I gave this 4.5 stars because this is one of my favorite rom-coms I have ever read. The trope combo in here just completely worked for me because it was sort of like fake relationship plus a forced proximity. So the setup of this is that the hero and the heroine are the maid of honor and the best man at the wedding of their siblings. So his brother and her sister are getting married. She is an identical twin with her sister, and everybody in the wedding except for the 2 of them, because they are picky eaters, get sick at the buffet. The couple can't go on their honeymoon, so the 2 of them take the honeymoon over for them because like same last names, she looks just like the sister, and shenanigans ensue. There is kind of an intense escalation of things towards the end, but Christina Lauren sold me on that, so that was fine for me at least. And I just really love the rom-com-y direction they've gone. I know some people miss their new adult stuff, and that's fair. I'm not really a huge new adult reader, so I personally really like the direction that their books have been going in. And this one, 4.5 stars, really enjoyed it. And I think Christina Lauren is close to becoming an auto-buy for me. Like, I've been really liking what they've been doing the last couple of years. Okay, and then the 28th book, I just realized that if I had waited until tomorrow, I could have shown you my copy of it because it is released tomorrow on the day I'm filming. That is Wolf Rain by Nalini Singh. This is, I think, the 18th installment-ish in the Side Changeling series, and it's a real return to form. I think this is one of my favorite books in that series. It just was so good. I can't really say much about it because it is the 18th book in a series and I don't want to spoil things, but basically we're back with a lot of like we're back in the Snow Dancer clan, so we are seeing a lot of characters we know and love. I think the political machinations are really heating up. I'm really enjoying where she's like kind of taking the overall macro plot of this, and then just like the connection between the 2 main characters in this were really great. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, just loved it. I'm realizing that everything kind of at the top of my list is romance related, and I wonder if that's because, I don't know, like I will tell you, 2019 has been a real reminder to me that I can really just like fully love romances. It has been a while since I've had any romance picks that were higher than like a 4-star, and like often sort of like a tepid 4-star at that. It's been a while since I've had like a whole slew of them that I've been reading and rating this highly, and it's been nice just to like get back to being like, there's some really great new books that are coming out. So I'm excited to tell you guys that there are some like really excellent things that have been coming out in this genre. I've just been enjoying a lot of what I've been reading, which leads us to my only 5-star book on this entire list of 29 books, and that is, drumroll please, The AUSTEN Playbook by Lucy Parker. This is my favorite arc that I have read so far for the first 6 months of the year. 5 stars, really like one of my all-time favorite in its genre, which is why I gave it a 5-star. A great, if you are somebody looking to get into romance, this is Lucy Parker in general, and this book in particular, I think would be pretty friendly points of entry. The setup is just so fun. This whole series is set between people who are working in the West End London theater scene, so it's a cool setting. The characters are really thoughtfully drawn in these books. The conflicts are always really credible and interesting, and what I really like about her little series here that she's got going is that each of them is very explicitly playing with a different trope. So like the first one was a fake relationship trope. This one, and sort of like enemies to lovers as well. This one is a Hufflepuff and a Slytherin getting together. So it is this Hufflepuff actress who comes from like a family of actors with this Slytherin theater critic whose family owns this estate that the actress is going to be in a TV play in. So they get thrown together. There's like a past mystery-ish thing that they're kind of trying to solve, like a literary mystery. And then also the play that she's in is based on like a Jane Austen murder mystery. So like it just has so much of my trope candy in it, and the couple in this are just so adorable together. I cannot handle it. The last couple scenes in this book are so swoony, like genuinely romantic, which I think can be hard to pull off in a book, but for me these were genuinely romantic scenes. And yeah, I just really love this, especially as we get into kind of these months where people are traveling a lot. Totally something I would recommend as something to like read on a plane kind of a thing. Just like fun, light, going to make you smile, a good way to pass some time and distract you from all of the fellow sweaty people who are crammed into this tiny tin can that you're hurtling across the sky in. It's just like, it's a really just like fun book that's easy for me to recommend to people. So yeah, those are the 29 arcs that I'm rating. I will tell you I also received the Missing of Clare de Lune as an arc in May, but I just decided like I needed some breathing room between reading the first book in the series and this one, so I'm not going to read it until Q3, so I'll include it then. The other thing I should mention is that of the books that I requested as arcs but did not get, but ended up reading anyway, I have 3 of those so far that have come out this year. One was Stroke of Luck by B.J. Daniels. I gave that 3 stars. In an Absent Dream by Shauna Maguire. Read this, gave it 3 stars. And then I just recently read The Kingdom by Jess Rothenberg. This came out on May 28th. I got it as a pre-order, read it almost immediately, and really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. Would definitely recommend this one. So yeah. This isn't even including all of the 2019 books that I've read that I didn't request as an arc. We'll do that at the end of the year, but I think that's plenty to be getting on with for right now. So I hope that this was a helpful video. If you have been having your eye on some of these new releases that are coming out, this is kind of my feeling of how they all stack up against each other and why. And I hope that this was helpful and that you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments one of your favorite 2019 releases, and you know, let's get spicy, one that you would steer people away from. That as well. And I think that will do it for this video. So if you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below, and I think that will do it. Hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye.